What's up, you guys? So I currently have 7 books out right now. Of course, this is just the 5 that I have the paperback version of. I have 2 ebooks, one called The Entire Universe Is You, and The Day That I Called Me Out on My Shit, Volume 2. I'm gonna give y'all a little sneak peek of what each book is about. So for new readers of mine, I would suggest them start with these 2 books, The Day That I Called Me Out on My Shit and Vanishing into Deep Bliss. The Day I Called Me Out on My Shit is more about shadow work and me practicing self-reflection techniques in the moment of emotional drama or when I first noticed reactivity erupting. So they're basically just short stories of my interactions with people and how I self-reflect and find the splintered consciousness that was making an appearance through me judging other people. As I teach, every judgment is a self-judgment. And what we judge in others is actually an unhealed part of ourselves trying to make an appearance to you. So your higher self and their higher selves orchestrated this whole meeting through soul contracts so you can see each other. The bigger the negative judgment, the more parts of you that are stuck in that other person. And I believe the whole of life is to go rescue unhealed parts of ourselves that were stuck in past traumas and past experiences. And oftentimes, those conscious splinters are stuck in the vibration of the people we're actually judging. One of the biggest revelations I received during that book is I was telling a story about me being in a restaurant and me feeling very impatient, how this server seemed to not be paying attention to me, how the food was taking so long. And then it hit me. The restaurant is not there. Well, experientially, it is. But in terms of soul, all of this is an orchestration to get me to see me. The me judging and finding this suffering that I was experiencing by this experience was actually my indication that some part of me is stuck in that vibration that I was sent here to this place to go and get me. And I talk about how you get yourself by sitting with the self, validating the self, and being aware that all moving parts in your reality, the restaurant, the server, the stranger, are aspects of you, are hidden dynamics within your own mind. Anyway, so that book's just a bunch of different short stories of how I've been practicing that in real time. So you will see me fall in and out of my shadows, in and out of chaos, in and out of the splintered consciousness of myself, and discovering hidden shadows that were buried within me that I didn't even know until I started this work. But the awareness of that allowed me to expand my level of understanding and compassion for myself and patience and kindness to myself. And that extends outwardly so I can show that same level of understanding, compassion, and patience with other people that I interact with. And so I teach you how to make your own The Day That I Called Me Out on My Shit journals. Vanishing into Deep Bliss is all about happiness. What is happiness? How to find it? The differences between cheap happiness that we chase in things and dopamine versus true inner happiness that comes from connection and God and from your soul. And how we can facilitate that and balancing between both versions of happiness within the mind. All of it is in the mind. So when it comes to self-love, I teach throw out the word love because that word is so confusing. Even though it's a simple word, it's so confusing that we don't really understand what it means. And we replace that word with wholeness. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get the rest of ourselves that was stuck in trauma. Because that's the only thing that causes suffering, the separation from yourself, being disconnected from yourself. So when you are whole by feeling and invalidating your existence, your truth, your experiences, your sensational emotions, the entire human experience, you'll find the Easter egg that helps you propel the moment. So we teach self-love through self-integration by going to get the splintered pieces of your consciousness and your experiences and your mind and your thoughts, going to get those parts of you and bringing them back together again to make them whole. Which piggybacks off my last bit, because in order to do that, we have to see the self. And in order to see the self, we have to understand that reality is a mirror. And once you realize reality is a mirror and you start to see everything as reflections of the hidden dynamics within your own mind, and you use your emotional reactions as indicators of where you are or how you are connected to that thing, person, event, or vibration, you'll use them as tools and equipment in Soul's gym instead of things to attack, things to avoid, things to fight, things to hate. They will become things that liberates. Whispers from an Oregon Box is one of my first books that I've written. The writing style in that book is a little choppy. But I keep that book up and available to show my progress in this and how I have discovered and learned new things. My Brush with Infinity. Now, this book is the real deal. This book is for when you want to cut the bullshit and get straight to the truth. It details my enlightenment experience when I was tripping, but not literally tripping. I was in deep, deep meditation, facilitated through specific, things. And I saw the structure of reality unfold in front of my face. And me being a writer, in that moment, in the middle of this experience, I pulled out my phone and I was almost like in tunnel vision, like there was this source of information coming down and I was in tunnel vision and I just started to write. Of course, afterwards, I was like, oh my gosh, I was just crazy. And then it's like, oh, people, they get crazy and they start talking crazy. And then as I read over it and began to compare and contrast and actually find people who've had the same experience and spiritualists who've had the same experience and not even just spiritualists, but people who teach how the brain works and teach how emotions work and self-help that aren't even into the whole metaphysical conversation, they are also saying the same thing. And then when I started taking that advice, it was like magic became magic. But that book is not something that I think the average person can understand, only because it is very up your ass. And it is very, no, you're making it all up. But with self-integration and the entire human experience, that's dangerous to say because ego will take that and run with it. Because as we are humans, the experience of our emotions are real, even though the reality itself is an illusion. The experience of illusions are real. I have this famous saying where I say, reality is an illusion. However, illusions are the only thing that a consciousness can experience as real. So technically, it's all real, but technically it's all not. And when I tell you I have gotten revelations about time, about consciousness, about oneness, about God, about religion. I know this is a stretch, but I was in heaven and all of y'all was there. Everybody was there. Not just people who had died. Everybody was currently there and currently here at the same time. I remember being everybody. All of y'all. I was everybody. I was every single person who is listening to this. I was you. I remember being you. This is why when people speak to me during the second volume of The Day That I Called Me Out of My Shit, it's almost like, I remember that. So it's like I'm able to provide a softer landing with my reactions to them, because everyone is just reacting to reactions, and those reactions are reacting to their own insecurities. So it's just insecurities reacting to insecurities who are reacting to insecurities. It's like victims of victims of victims. And we're all only in our bubbled reality thinking we're interacting with other people, but we're not. We're just interacting with different splinters of our own consciousness. And The Final Ascend. This is actually my most recent book and my favorite book. This one is sort of a mishmash of all these books, but the most profound revelations that I've received compiled into one book. Now, this is a long book. This is a pretty heavy lady, okay? So it's 394 pages. This is the edited version. So this is actually the shorter version, just the manuscript copy, but or editing version. Just flip through. Maybe if you can stop, you can see some pages. We talk about the Gospels. We talk about the sphere. We talk about the Anunnaki. We talk about the soul system. Now that book is teaching you the differences between the experiential expression of life and existence and the mechanical expression of life and existence. It's dual. Everything is dual because reality and life and everything you see around you is really just a metaphorical construct came to life. And that metaphor is reflective of what God is doing on a macro scale. So everything is a fractalized version of a bigger and smaller version of itself. And that goes on infinitely up, infinitely big, and infinitely tiny, infinitely down, infinitely small. And the whole of that infiniteness is buried within you. Anytime you are truly present with a capital TP, You are God.